So I had a good story idea.
Ooh, we don't do those on this show.
Yeah, I know. And I was looking for a story to put in the non-Cosmere Brandon Sanderson collection, right? I've got all these stories that I think are pretty fun, but they aren't in the Cosmere, right? So I've done Snapshot, Perfect State, and Defending Elysium, and all of this stuff that's my kind of science fiction-y stuff. And I wanted a cornerstone story that hadn't been released before, right? It's always nice when the collection has something new. And so I was like, I want to write a little science fiction story. And I came up with an idea. And I really liked it.
Cool.
And so I've been writing that novella. The basic premise is two cops out on the beat. They don't think it's anything special, but they get involved in something, an explosion happens, and one wakes up 3 days in the future, and one wakes up 3 days in the past. And they have to figure out, they have a cell phone that is entangled, so they can chat with each other.
Yeah.
And they got to figure out what happened, because the one 3 days in the future is living in a post-apocalypse. And so it's like you can talk to the person in the future to find out the post-apocalypse, and the one in the past kind of has to solve the mystery together while the one in the future is surviving.
Yeah. I remember you telling me about this. I think it sounds awesome.
It's been really fun to write. And so, yeah. It got us thinking. When I mentioned this to you, we're like, we should talk time travel.
Yeah.
We've never really talked time travel on the podcast. We should talk about like what mechanics we like and what films and stories do it well. And what films and stories, it doesn't matter that the time travel mechanic is terrible.
Time travel's awful.
Right. So I figured we're not going to do like a tier list or anything like that, but we'll talk about a bunch of films and talk about what we think of the time travel and what we think of the story separately. Does that sound like fun?
I think it sounds awesome.
So, do you have a favorite time travel story?
It's very difficult for me to not say Bill and Ted.
Okay.
Bill and Ted's Excellent Adventure really holds up. I was not expecting it to because it is so decidedly early 90s. But watched chunks of it at a con several years ago, watched the movie again recently with my kids, and I love it.
We rewatched when 3 came out.
My wife watched 1.
Yeah, watched 1 and 2. I'm very fond of 2. I happen to love Bill and Ted Go to Hell. And I would agree with you. It's like top tier time travel story. And it holds up really well. There's some things, like I love watching Bill and Ted and knowing that they didn't even have the budget to show the time travel very often. And they had to use it judiciously. And so if you know some of the things, like when they teleport in or they time travel in, it often just shows a flash on people because they couldn't animate the phone booth dropping because that was inside their budget. And that's like a very cheap special effect. And they couldn't afford that very often.
So yeah, you see a flash on somebody's face, like it's a late season Doctor Who episode.
Yep.
And then they pop out. And there are some holes in how its time travel works, but not as many as you think. Not as many as you might suspect.
I always listed Bill and Ted as one that did it right. And then when I rewatched a couple years ago, I'm like, oh, that breaks their own rule. And that kind of breaks their own rule a little bit.
Do you have an example?
I'm trying to remember. Honestly, it's been a little while. I feel like it was the bucket scene that really that violated their own rules.
The
garbage can over the head.
Yeah.
That's like, I don't think that actually works with the rules that they were told. But there's a moment in that film where I'm like, Rufus said something different. Right there. But it was a really good, funny line.
Yeah, I think you're right. I seem to remember on my last rewatch, and it was in that final sequence where they have to infiltrate the police station, where there were 1 or 2 things that were like, oh, that doesn't work as well as I remember.
Yeah.
There's some that are great, like let's just remember to steal the keys in the future and leave them behind this wall, and then they look and there's the keys, like that still flies and is cheap but clever.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, there's something in there. I wish I didn't know we were going to do this episode. I would have taken notes while I was watching Bill and Ted. Let us know in the comments if Bill and Ted does or if I'm just remembering wrong. But fantastic movie. Very cheap. And that's part of its charm.
Yes.
They lean into it. Like Princess Bride does this too. Like Princess Bride always feels like a movie set. Right? Like when they do this, like the fight between Inigo Montoya and the Man in Black.
Yeah.
You can see the springboards they're jumping off of, and they don't try to hide them very well at all. And it makes it feel like a play, and it actually really works. They have an aesthetic. Bill and Ted seems to have the same sort of thing where they're like, don't think about it too much, guys. It's okay. Yes, we're using stock footage for the Napoleonic War. Did you notice that?
Yeah.
When you watch it, you're like, wait,
Like,
this is a different film grain, guys. This is completely different color grading. What's going on here? And then you cut to the same scene next door, and there's Napoleon on a soundstage. Yeah, but it's delightful.
Yeah, it is. In Dark One Forgotten, when she kind of goes home and talks about her childhood, that's San Dimas, California, because
Bill and Ted.
We wanted to have a little Bill and Ted nod in there.
Do you like Bill and Ted 2?
I haven't seen Bill and Ted 2 or 3.
How did you grow up loving Bill and Ted and not go see Bill and Ted 2? How did this happen? Like, I understand that people just don't see films sometimes, but how did you not?
See, I didn't see the first one in a theater either.
Oh, didn't you?
No.
Okay.
I think I saw it at a party somewhere.
Okay, and you're
still
like
high school era, but
2 years younger than me or something like that, right?
Yeah, graduated 95.
Okay, that's just 1 year younger than me. I was there at Bill and Ted, and it was one of my favorite movies as a kid. So when Bill and Ted 2 came out, I was there opening day. And I'm just kind of shocked that there's too many of you, because that's why it took us 20 years to get a third
probably
one.
30 years to get a sequel.
Yeah, because if you guys had all gone to Bill and Ted 2 like you should have, then we would have had more Bill and Ted through the years.
No, I should see it. Clearly, I need to.
Bill and Ted 2, you're going to watch, and we're going to have a whole thing on Bill and Ted 2 and 3.
Okay.
Because Bill and Ted 2 is excellent, and Bill and Ted 3 is really good.
I mean, the first one is excellent. The second one is bogus. It says
it is bogus
right in the title.
Do you know why I called it Bill and Ted Go to Hell?
Wasn't that like the original title they couldn't use? The
title on the script that they couldn't use because they couldn't have advertising say that before 9 p.m. or whatever. But
what is the third one called?
Bill and Ted's Bill and
Ted 3? Is it
3?
the same structure?
I believe it is, yeah.
Adjective, noun?
Bill and Ted's
Bill and Ted Face the Music.
Face the Music.
Face the Music, so it's a different structure altogether.
It is a different structure, but
nice.
It's real good.
Cool.
It has like awesome, genuine laughs. It's like the acting, like what's his name, has not really been in films. Went on and became a director.
Yeah, the non-Keanu Reeves guy.
Yeah, Bill, and he's fantastic. Like he falls right into that role and is lovable. It's even a little bit like Keanu's really good, but Keanu's had this whole career after. It's hard to not see Keanu Reeves doing Ted, and Bill is just Bill. And absolutely, really love the film.
Yeah.
So I don't want to spoil it for you, but I could talk about some of the best parts of it, but I'm not going to.
Okay. We will not talk about it.
You got to watch Bill and Ted 2 and 3. All right. Groundhog Day.
Groundhog Day.
Groundhog Day is my number one, I think, time travel movie.
Arguably the greatest fantasy movie ever made.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Love Groundhog Day. And what do you think about the mechanics of Groundhog Day?
The time loop?
Yeah.
I like it.
Yeah.
I like time loop stories in general.
Do you?
Yeah, I love them. Have you seen the TV show Russian Doll?
No, I haven't.
It's Natasha Lyonne.
Uh-huh.
Absolutely stellar performance. And it's this little Netflix series, 12 or 13 episodes, time loop in New York. But I love time loops.
Yeah. Well, time loops are fun. I mean, Live, Die, Repeat is in my top echelon also. Edge Tomorrow. And I wish, like when Live, Die, Repeat came out, People are like, oh, it's just like another time loop story. I heard that. I'm like, but no, this is a great framework. We could tell lots of cool stories with this. Very obviously, like I haven't seen Happy Death Day, but I know a lot of people like it.
Yeah.
And then it works. Like this is a structure that we could have more. It could obviously get overplayed, but we could definitely have a few more stories.
Yeah, there was a straight to streaming movie with Andy Samberg called Palm Springs.
Oh yeah, I've heard
See
of
that
one.
one?
Mm-hmm.
Which kind of changed the formula by there is a specific kind of anomaly that creates the time loop.
Yeah.
And other people during the one day can stumble into it and get caught in the same thing.
Oh, that's cool.
Which changes a lot.
That changes the whole thing. Yeah.
And
so you can bring people in to help you and things like that. If you can get them to stumble into the
Yeah. So that one was kind of interesting. I liked that one.
Well, people are doing really interesting things with it because rightly so in Groundhog Day, right? You don't know why he's trapped, how he's trapped, and you get a sense that it was for the greater good. Like he becomes a better person, and at the end, has become deserving of the life that he has now been able to live by living that day. But they don't go into the mechanics. And so it's really hard to talk about the mechanics of it. And that's good for Groundhog Day.
Yeah.
But something like Edge of Tomorrow, they're like, okay, the aliens always win because they have the ability to reset time. Now you've got that ability. What will you do with it? Gives it a nice science fiction premise because then you can play with the premise and the actual mechanics of it. So
yeah, that's why I classified Groundhog Day as a fantasy rather than a science fiction.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Because there's clearly rules.
Yeah.
But the rule is very basic.
The rule is God decided you're going to live this day over until you get it right.
Yeah.
Is kind of what the sense you get.
It's one of the greatest scripts, one of the best movies, best comedies.
Mm-hmm.
I did look up time loops.
Yeah.
In preparation for this episode, knowing that we were going to talk about it, and there were a handful of kind of minor time loop stories, like dating back.
Yeah.
To early 1900s.
I remember looking at this too when people are like, oh, it's just copying Groundhog Day. I remember looking it up and being like, oh, these stories have gone back. You can go find the old magazines.
These stories existed before.
Mm-hmm.
The first big kind of mainstream one, though, was a Star Trek episode.
That's right.
The year before Groundhog Day.
Was it the year before? That's the one where
92 and 93.
2P is it? It's the
two moons orbit.
Yeah,
or one moon orbits.
The starship explodes, and yeah,
and they just repeat the same day over and over and over again. Given that it's only 1 year, I don't think that you can say that episode inspired Groundhog Day. There's no way the movie was made that fast. So they must both have been drawing on something else.
So, Back to the Future. What are your
Future.
Thoughts on Back to the Future?
Love Back to the Future.
Yeah?
I love 1. I love 3. 2 doesn't really do it for me.
2 has fantastic parts. Half the movie seems to really work, and half the movie doesn't quite work. I do like him going to the future and meeting his family and seeing Biff steal the thing, but there's just parts of it that are gross. And just don't like the post-apocalypse for the, I don't know, just it doesn't feel like it works with the spirit of the rest of everything.
It really became almost a special effects showcase.
Yeah.
In the future. Because of the way they were able to do things like have him playing 3 or 4 roles at once on screen together, which back in late 80s was insane. That we'd never seen that before. But the third one, I love the third.
Third one is fantastic. It's kind of back to the same roots of the first one, but in some ways just a little bit better. I don't know. It's just
I don't think that the mechanics, the time travel mechanics, hang together as well in the third.
The first one's time travel mechanics are some of the best. Because having this idea of the longer you're there, the more the timeline resets to, to what you've changed, and that you've got this time to fix things, and then the timeline will try to hold itself together. It mostly works.
Yeah.
Right? Like there is this problem, like you have to ignore the butterfly effect. You have to pretend that the timeline's going to try to self-correct. And as long as you can keep it from making big errors, it will self-correct and whatnot. But,
Yeah. And of course, John Mulaney's got a whole bit where he talks about how completely bonkers the premise of the movie is.
Yeah.
That, his best friend is a disgraced nuclear physicist, and he goes back in time and his mom immediately hits on him. And like, there's a lot of goofiness there, but it holds together really well. And then the third one is such a wonderful science fiction Western adventure.
Yep.
They name drop Jules Verne 50 times, but they really are capturing a lot of that spirit. I remember as a teenager thinking that the big climax with the speeding train and the different colors of smoke and everything was one of the best endings to a movie, one of the best sustained action sequences I'd ever seen.
Yep. It's excellent. So good films.
Yay.
Set 2, yeah. I mean, it deserves the reputation it has, but good films. I haven't watched them with my family, my kids.
See, I have.
Yeah.
Sometime it was either spring or it was over the holidays.
Yeah.
But within the last year, decided that we were going to show all three to our kids in order.
Okay.
And it did make me reconsider 2. It's better than I remember it being.
There's some really fun things in 2.
Yeah.
That I enjoy. I legit enjoy the future world where he has to do the hoverboard across the water, and stuff like that is a lot of fun. I enjoy a lot of the future world. The double ties are hilarious. Yeah. So
the double ties. I love the moment when he's showing the kids how good he is on the video game, and they say, "You have to use your hands."
Yeah.
It's a baby toy.
Yep.
Which, we're not at that point yet, but I can see us getting there. It was great. Okay, so here is a movie that I bet you haven't seen.
Okay.
And I cannot in good conscience even recommend it to anybody because it is so trashy.
Wow. Okay.
But I absolutely love Hot Tub Time Machine.
Oh, I have it on my list for this reason, Dan.
Okay,
Yeah.
Good. Have you seen Hot Tub Time Machine? It is just a trashy movie.
Okay.
But it is the kind of movie where, for example, one of the moment in the movie where I realized, oh, this is brilliant and I love it. So many movies have that moment where the character is stumbling around and they ask somebody, wait, what year is this? And in Hot Tub Time Machine, that moment comes when Craig Robinson grabs somebody and says, wait, what color is Michael Jackson? And that's how he realizes that they're stuck back in the 80s.
You could do it now with Ariana Grande.
And that would help you narrow it down
right.
to several different periods of history.
What ethnicity is Ariana Grande currently? Yeah.
Yeah. And that kind of vibe and irreverence permeates the whole movie. I like it a lot.
Okay. Well, I have not seen it. But you don't recommend it, but you like it a lot.
It's so gross.
Okay. That's not a good recommendation for me, so yeah.
Yeah. But anyway, I had to say it because I adore it deeply.
Okay. There is one movie I want to leave off this list that we discussed, maybe, because it's a spoiler that it's a time travel movie. So let's leave out movies that it's a spoiler to discover it's time travel.
Okay? I think I know which one you're talking about.
So we're not going to mention any of those. But I do want to mention Frequency as one of my all-time favorites because it partially inspired when I'm like, if I have a cop in the future and a cop in the past, and they're both independently solving this mystery, it's not going to be as interesting or dynamic if they can't interact. So I'm like, all right, I'll give them a cell phone. I'm like, oh, it's like Frequency. I love Frequency. Yeah. Right? Like
Frequency
there is that
was
moment.
Such a great movie. And the ability to, talk to your dad in the past.
Very touching movie.
Very surprisingly emotional, especially the ending.
Yep. Again, plays loose and free with the butterfly effect.
Mm-hmm.
Very loose and free with the butterfly effect. You kind of just have to ignore that. But good movie. Not enough people have seen Frequency of the younger generation. Have you seen Frequency?
I've not. In fact, when we first discussed this, you had brought up Frequency. It's like, I don't even know what this movie is.
Yeah.
So it's on my list to watch as of this week.
It's a good one.
Yeah.
Speaking of ones everyone has probably seen, Avengers Endgame.
Yep. That was next on my list. So
Avengers Endgame.
Endgame's one of my favorite movies of all time.
Yeah.
I think structurally, Infinity War is a little more interesting. Endgame is the MCU's victory lap, right?
Mm-hmm.
What do you think of Endgame? Have we talked about this?
I love Endgame. Endgame is, I love moments in a theater where the whole audience cheers or gasps or something's all together. And Endgame has at least 3 of those moments.
Yep.
I love it a lot. I don't know if I would love it as much as I do had I seen it at home. And that's one of the reasons I'm kind of sad that streaming seems to be killing theaters.
Yeah.
But
well, I mean, I know those moments, and it's hard to like Infinity War more, even though it's a superior movie. For years, I was like, Infinity War is my favorite of those. And Endgame has overtaken it for those moments, right?
Mm-hmm.
I experienced stories for those moments, and the MCU earned them, and the Russos earned them with a lot of hard work trying to tie together a lot of different people's narrative voices and a lot of different actors. And so the time travel of it, this is time travel as, again, victory lap in a lot of ways, right? So that movie, why do we have time travel in that movie? The honest answer is so that Tony Stark can make kind of amends with his father. And so that Captain America can go back and have a dance, right?
Yeah.
Like, that's why we're doing it. That's why we need the time travel in that movie. And it's also a fun little, let's go travel through time.
Mm-hmm.
I will make my one big complaint, which is they should have broken time travel and not made it possible after that film. Right?
Yeah. There should have been some limiting factor on it where, like, well, we can do it. And they did that sort of with the Pym particles.
Right. Except then they realized they could travel back in time and get more Pym particles. And you can do that infinitely.
Mm-hmm.
Right?
Which kind of screws everything up.
Yep.
My other huge complaint about it is that Iron Man got a huge emotional funeral and Black Widow got, like, 5 guys standing next to a lake.
Yep. Yeah.
Which always has bothered me.
Well, that's kind of par for the course for how she was treated by the,
That's true.
We're going to give you your movie after the phase is done, and it's going to be okay. It's going to have really good acting, and it's going to make you laugh, and then
it's going to have a terrible villain.
Yeah.
And it's not really even your own movie. It is setting up
it's a setup for your replacement.
It's your replacement. We're going to let your replacement star in the movie. And yeah. So, yeah.
Yeah. But really, it's great. Their time travel mechanics are really stupid.
Mm-hmm.
Even while watching it, one of my kids looked over at me and said, "This is dumb." And I'm like, yeah, but it's fun. Just go along with it.
I think they may have made the mistake of saying all those other movies, no, that's not how time travel works. This is how it works. And it made you compare it to the other movies' time travel mechanics when they're just like, don't think about it. Tony Stark can figure out time travel in a weekend. We need this. That's all we need is Tony Stark needs to see his dad.
Yeah.
Okay, we're on board with that. Tony Stark needs to see his dad.
We're going to do it. Yeah.
Captain America needs to go back and actually have the life that he should have led if he hadn't heroically sacrificed himself. Okay, you know what? I'm on board. I'm on board. And all you need to do is hand wave it, and that's all they did.
And the great thing is that even with that as a starting need, they made the time travel work for other reasons.
Yes.
They made it really come together. It's only the middle act of a 3-act movie.
Yeah.
And that act is basically let's like you said, it's a victory lap. Let's take a tour of all these other movies that you loved.
Yep.
Remember this scene? Remember this scene? We're back in them again, and it's cute and it's fun. And so the ability to do all of that, like they did their due diligence with it.
They did.
They were kind of cheating in order to provide good closing character arcs for these two big leads. But first of all, they thought about those things and they did it right.
And the idea of time heist that's cool.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I love a heist, and you have me on board, and we're like, time heist. We're going to go steal from ourselves in the past. It's a good premise. It's a nice science fiction premise.
Well, and they all but wrote, those big Comic-Con, here's what movies are coming in what years. They pretty much wrote that on their chalkboard.
Yeah.
Which was just a nice thing for fans to see and say, oh, look, they're looking at the same stuff that we look at. It was all fan service, but they made it work for reasons other than fan service, and that is impressive.
It is. What are we missing? What haven't we talked about?
So the big one that comes to mind is Looper.
Yeah, I haven't seen Looper. I keep meaning to.
Looper's pretty good.
That's Ryan Johnson, right?
Yep.
Yeah. He can write a tight script sometimes.
Yep.
He is not beholden to larger forces.
Yep. I will, by the way, can I mention that the time passes, the more I like Glass Onion.
Really?
Really?
Yeah.
That's interesting. I should give it another
I was
watch.
only so on Glass Onion, right?
Yeah, both of us were.
And the further I get from it, the more it just makes me smile that the whole movie was kind of a prank on all of us. And how silly and dumb it was as a follow-up to the first one everyone taking so very seriously. And him just saying, no, you need to relax. This is dumb. We're going to have the character call it dumb. It's okay to find it dumb. It's about the quirky characters. Don't try.
Yeah.
And I kind of like that.
Interesting. I rewatched Knives Out and continue to adore it.
It's quite adorable.
Yeah. But it
Knives
is not
Out
a time travel.
Also isn't about solving the mystery. I think he wants to teach you that these are not about solving the mystery.
But they do solve the mystery.
They do, but you can't solve the mystery as the viewer. Like a lot of whodunits are about, whoa, all the pieces are there. Can you solve the mystery?
I think you can.
Can
I
you?
think that it is tighter than that.
Okay.
But it is very much about the quirky characters, for sure.
All right. What are we missing? What are we
else?
missing?
X-Men Days of Future Past.
Ah,
It's their big.
That's a good one.
Yeah, that is a good one.
I remember thinking at the time that it was probably going to be terrible because the X-Men series itself had been so hit or miss.
Mm-hmm.
And he managed to tie together different continuities and explain the hit or miss and like wipe away the bad ones that we didn't want to canonize anymore, all in world with this time travel story. It was really well done.
I enjoyed that. I would agree with you for all those reasons. Now, I hadn't seen the terrible Wolverine movies, but I had seen the terrible X3.
Mm-hmm.
And watching this movie and watching them say, it goes from X2 and now X3 doesn't exist anymore was so nice.
It's great.
It was.
And then they made Age of Apocalypse, and then they made Dark Phoenix or whatever.
Yeah.
So they just ruined it again. But
I didn't see
for a brief time
Age of Apocalypse or Dark Phoenix. So for me, it goes straight from X-Men 1, X-Men 2, First Class, Days of Future Past, Logan.
Yeah.
There
you go.
That's the. And I saw X3, but it's gone now. So, and I haven't seen any of the bad ones. So the X-Men series is actually pretty perfect as you think about it. That's a sequence of really strong films.
Yeah.
I can't believe they didn't make any bad ones.
It's too bad that they didn't have any more.
Yeah.
And didn't manage to make any terrible ones.
Yep, I haven't seen Wolverine and Deadpool.
Wolverine Origins.
No, I was saying
the new Deadpool.
The new one,
Yeah,
the
yeah.
Wolverine and Deadpool.
Right.
Deadpool
But that's a
and
separate
Wolverine.
continuity, so it's okay.
Yeah.
It different.
It's okay.
It's
I
not
do want
Logan
to see that
continuity.
one.
But I think Logan is the regular X-Men line continuity, right?
Correct. I think Logan
Yeah.
was the true capstone
The
of
true
all
capstone.
of that.
So it's a good run of movies that just kind of get better and better and better.
So speaking of Deadpool
Yes.
and time travel,
Mhm.
Deadpool 2
Yes.
and the version that you and I watched together, which was Once Upon a Deadpool,
Yes.
that has a bunch of time travel in it.
It does. Yeah.
Does, because Cable is coming back
Cable.
in time
Okay. Yeah.
in order to kill baby Hitler, basically,
Mm-hmm.
so that he doesn't become
That's right.
actual bad guy.
Yeah. That's just there for Terminator jokes, but yes, it is true. It's a very fun movie. Excellent. I don't know what I'm missing, but I know I got lots of Fred Savage that was very funny. So I highly recommend that version to anyone.
I've seen both versions, and Once Upon a Deadpool is so much better. It's funnier. It's tighter. It doesn't have the. I mean, there's the scene in there where he pauses, and it cuts back to the Fred Savage scene. And Deadpool is looking at him like, aren't you going to say the line? Aren't you going to say, is this a kissing book? But he doesn't say it out loud. And the two of them just act at each other with their faces, one of whom is wearing a mask that completely obscures his face. And yet you know exactly what's going on, and it's hilarious the whole time. It's amazing to me they were able to pull that off.
Well, Once Upon a Deadpool, also a good film. We haven't mentioned any bad films. Give me some bad time travel
some
movies.
bad time travel.
What do we? Time travel is so. Oh, Harry Potter 3 is the best Harry Potter movie.
I was about to bring this up.
I know that's
and that's the time travel
the best
one.
Harry Potter, but it has terrible time travel stuff.
It has terrible time travel mechanics. Just awful.
It's another one of these, like you say with Endgame, where the fact that they made time travel exist at all kind of ruins things going forward.
Yeah, until J.K. Rowling has them accidentally blow up all the time turners that were all collected so that people would stop grousing about it. Yeah, how about you just make the rules of your magic system make sense, Joe? That would help a ton if you want to have based your magic school on these rules. So, yeah.
Have you guys seen Time Cop?
I have not seen Time Cop.
Is that a Steven Seagal?
Yeah.
I'm pretty sure it's terrible.
If it is, then I have Van Damme.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah. I've seen it.
You've seen Time Cop?
I have seen Time Cop.
It is, in my opinion, not very good.
I've seen almost everything that Jean-Claude Van Damme has made.
Isn't technically Highlander 2 a time travel movie? Isn't there a guy from the future who comes back? Or is he an alien?
I don't know. I haven't seen either Highlander movie.
Oh, really?
Speaking of things Dan hasn't seen.
So Highlander 1 is one of these, wow, this has a great concept, and you didn't quite pull it off, but I appreciate your kind of low budget, cool concept. It's like how Terminator 1 is really, good, but then T2 kind of is able to really fulfill on a lot of that. Terminator 1 is excellent. It's a bad example, I guess.
Yeah.
But it's like you're hoping that Highlander 2 would really, and then Highlander 2 is
out the world.
just bad, right? And so I'm trying to remember. I feel like there's alien dude or something. Maybe he's an alien. I can't remember. It's like the whole idea is like the Highlander, these people, these immortals, they have to each claim there can only be one. Eventually, you'll get down to the one who wins the contest. It's a cool idea. And then I remember maybe it's 3. And this is one of the later ones. So like, actually, you're all aliens. And yeah, it was dumb.
Highlander being Highlander.
Yeah.
I think that'd be remiss if we didn't bring up Tenet.
Tenet, I love Tenet. I'd love Tenet. Does it make any sense? I still don't know. I can't critique the mechanics of Tenet because I don't know if it makes sense or not.
The scene in it where you get to see the fight scene twice.
Yes.
From both points of view was the one part of Tenet that I loved. Absolutely loved. The rest of Tenet I thought was, I don't know, it did not hit for me. It didn't land. Yeah,
we had this discussion. There's so many moments in that film that I love. So many.
But very clearly a time travel movie. I think the idea that you can travel back in time, but you do it in real time. You basically just experience time in reverse.
Yeah.
That's a clever thing that I haven't really seen anywhere.
I mean, that's part of its charm. Let's be honest.
Yeah.
I love But man, something about that movie. I like just sitting back and being like, just do your thing, Nolan. And he does his thing. And I'm just like, I'm on board.
I need to give it another try because I remember thinking that the whole final battle sequence was meaningless nonsense. And I'm sure that it's not.
Mm-hmm.
There must have been something about the way I was watching it or my own attitude or something.
Yeah. I mean, that whole thing, the important moment is at the end where Edward Cullen,
Robert Pattinson.
Robert Pattinson, sorry, walks away.
Yeah.
After you just realize what he's walking toward.
Mm-hmm.
That moment is great. I love that moment. So anyway.
Well, it's the one good character moment in the show. So any other time travels that we need to hit real quick?
I mean, the quick list would be, we already did Terminator, kind of. Donnie Darko is up there, technically.
We should.
I haven't seen that one.
Maybe we should do another, like, we could probably talk Terminator for a while, couldn't we?
Probably.
Yeah. So maybe we'll Terminator's too big. We're out of time. This has been fun.
Yeah.
I like just kind of talking about things. And I hope that you do too, because that's what we do.
So does Ben.